It's that time of the week. Yes, it's the Creator Town Hall here on Studio Live today. And today, it's been a long time in the making, but we have an artist that I've known for coming up a year now. His name is Al, but he's better known as Night Train 1988. He's a singer, songwriter, musician from England, a drummer, a synth wave pop creation. He just does it all. I did have a pre-scripted thing here, but why don't we jump in and bring him on and he can explain it all for himself. So please welcome to Studio Live today for the first time, Al, Night Train 1988. How you doing, mate?
Hi all. Hi Pete.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here, my friend, and thank you for being here. We did the pre-show and the testing, and our stuff was looking perfect, and then like 5 minutes beforehand, my internet glitched out entirely. So just to give you a glimpse into that. But hello to all the folks who are here live, and for those who don't know you, Al, what I like to do at the start of these shows is give you an opportunity, give you a platform to tell us a little bit about yourself and your music, but then maybe go back into the musical origin story of where you came from and where you are now.
Okay. So if I start in the past, then
Go for it.
came from a very musical household. Not playing wise, but there was music always being played in the house, either vinyl tapes, that sort of thing. My dad used to do sound and lights for a band when I was a kid.
Cool.
So we'd go along to gigs and things like that occasionally. He didn't actually play anything, but my mum and dad just split up when I was quite young, so I just lived with my mum. But my mum was always listening to music, easy listening sort of stuff like Leo Sayer and the
Oh,
Carpenters and things like
Leo.
that.
Love it.
Yeah, but my brother was probably my biggest influence. He's 7 years older than me, and he was just cool, like anybody with an older brother. And anything he got into, I kind of got into. So he got into Dire Straits, so I got into Dire Straits.
Yep.
He got into Rush, and that was kind of my doorway into prog. Before that, it was
Love it.
always sort of stuff. My brother played a bit of guitar, and I played keyboards at that point. I got a keyboard, my first keyboard when I was about 10 years old, and we would just jam around at home. Neither of us could really play particularly well. And then I'd occasionally mess around with pots and pans and things, playing drums. But I was a keyboard player at that point. Yeah, so me and my brother messed around. Skip forward to joining college at sort of the age of 16. Decided keyboard wasn't really for me. I didn't have the discipline to learn to tune an instrument at that point. I guess as a teenager, you don't really have that patience, do you?
Oh, I
And I
hear you.
realised that I could sort of hit stuff in time. So I used to sit on my bed with a. Do you know what Yellow Pages is? Do you have those in Australia?
Yes, yeah, phone
Yeah,
book, big
yeah,
ass phone
yeah,
book. Yep.
yeah, like that thick. So I would sit
Yep.
on my bed with that between my legs, and I would have a pair of drumsticks, and I'd play along to Rush and stuff like that. And my stepdad at the time, he would sort of stand at the door listening, and he said to my mum, "I really think he needs to get a drum kit." So he actually suggested it to me, and because I was thinking, I lived in a semi-detached house with neighbours, so I never thought I'd be able to
Yeah.
get one. But worked through the summer picking potatoes on a farm to earn enough money to buy a drum kit, and went in and got my first Honer kit for £350,
Wow.
and brought it home. And didn't even have a stool at that point. I'd sit on my bed and play it. It was just five shells and a couple of cymbals.
Yeah.
But then I went to college, met a guy who was a very good guitarist, and we formed a band and kind of kind of went on from there. So I've been playing drums since then, in various bands throughout the years. I've done grunge, rock, like old classic rock covers, our own Brit pop rock sort of stuff,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
funk. 60s. It's pretty much every genre I've played at one point or another as a drummer, and always done
Love it.
backing vocals. Yeah, and then forward a long way to lockdown,
Yeah.
where the singer of the band that I was in, he decided to move up country, so the band kind of just went under. And like a lot of people, I guess during lockdown, I was craving music and the creative bug sort of thing.
Mm.
And then one day I went onto YouTube and came across this Australian guy called Pete who was doing some instructional stuff on this thing called GarageBand,
Yeah.
and it kind of went from there. Really, rediscovered my keyboard roots and decided to put some stuff together.
Very, very cool. I love that, and I love it's a good way to get to know you and to kick off these shows and do that whole music origin story because I think it says a lot about you as a person, as an artist, and one thing that I'm jealous of, because I know a lot of folks that I talk to on this show that are, um, let's just say our age, our level of experience. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
We had this gap where you weren't playing music, and what I love is that you were still playing in bands the whole way through. So a lot of us have the whole, the work and the life and the house and the mortgage and all that stuff
yeah.
gets in the way, and it goes away. So how did you keep that up, and how did you? I know there's a lot of people out there thinking, how the heck did you balance playing in bands, going out there rocking out Blur and Oasis tunes at friggin' 2 in the morning, and holding down a job and doing all the other adulting that we all have to do?
I had a very understanding wife. Although anyone who was watched You Rock Tom show last night, I played a song from this covers album that my wife sings on. So my wife is actually a singer.
Oh
She
wow.
hasn't sung for a lot of years for various reasons, but I managed to actually convince her to sing on a track on this album, which was really cool. So she sort of
Very cool.
understood the band thing. She'd done it herself. But when we started the family, I think she kind of naturally took the back seat and that stuff. It sounds
Yeah.
really selfish talking about it like that, but I continued to do my band stuff. I think I kind of needed it.
Yeah.
It's an outlet, for the mental health and everything. But there was times that I think it was a time I was in three different bands, and that was really difficult. I couldn't give all the bands what they needed, so I had to just make a decision and decide which one
Yeah.
I was going to stay in. But yeah,
Oh,
it was tough, especially when I was in a band we were gigging every single weekend.
yeah.
And I think when it gets to that point, it becomes something enjoyable, becomes a bit of a chore. So I took it down to bands I were in. We were only gigging sort of once a month and maybe
Yeah.
rehearsing every now and then, and it became a lot more manageable.
What is it? Is it just that drummers are such a rare talent, but every drummer I know doesn't play in one band? Like, there's guitarists play in one band, singers play in one band, bassists play in one band. Why do drummers always play in 3 to 5 bands at any given time? Is it
Yeah,
just because you're that good or that you're so in demand? I've never quite understood that.
I think it is just shortage of drummers, to be honest. I'd like to
Yeah.
say it's because I'm so good, but I'm not very good at
Uh,
selling myself. But yeah, it always did seem to be that there was a shortage of drummers around, and there was a sort of big in the town that I live in here in the UK. There was sort of a community of musicians, and you'd
yeah.
always end up sort of playing and quite often depping in bands as well. If
Yeah.
people often and the band I was in a '60s band, and we used to do a what they call it, open mic or jam night sort of thing. We
Oh,
used to
yeah.
host
Yeah.
it, so we'd get up and play a couple of songs, and then the rest of the night was just people getting up, playing our stuff, playing endless 12-bar blues stuff, and uh, that was an eye opener.
So you're just sitting there on the hi-hat.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
precisely. Dun, 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 dun,
Oh.
dun. Yeah.
Very, very cool. We'll talk a whole lot more about a lot of things to do with what you're doing now in your creations that you're putting out there now. The fact that you've kind of brought your drums and your keyboards and brought that all together in what you're making now as we go through the show here. But we are live and we are interactive. So I did want to give a shout out to all the folks who are watching live. So let's do a quick rundown and roll call. G'day, Derek Smith. Here in Australia, we've got Dave Fox there. Lily Pilly's also in Australia here. We've got Mimo Japan. Not sure where Mimo's from. No, Mimo Japan in Japan. Thanks for tuning in here. Gregory O'Sullivan, Guzzo of Oz. This is a good time for our Australians because I know it's like morning time for the folks in the UK and Europe. And all of our American and UK, US friends in the Canada, you're probably snoozing, except Joe Glenn, who set an alarm just to be up to watch you
Oh,
here today. So no pressure,
I go.
Al, but Joe's tuning in. We've got Darren Anderson up there in Queensland town as well. The one and only Jade Star. G'day to Marcus Cannell. I'm scrolling on down. I think we've covered everyone. Hello, Brian Kaderin. If I've missed you, I apologise. There's a lot of folks here. Black Covers, Ingo from Black Covers, who creates some great music, is here as well. And I agree with Marcus here. Says that you're doing amazing stuff. So it's a good segue
Thank you.
to move into the stuff that you're doing here. There you go, South Wales. From South Wales, New York, USA. That's a lot of different places. Well, I see South. I thought it was New South Wales, and then I thought it was South Wales, and then it's New York. Well, that's a lot of places. That's right. Yeah, drummers are hard to come by. Good drummers are hard to come by, I would say. So when you're in demand, that's what it's all about. What got you into actually creating your own music, Al? Because you mentioned playing. So when you were playing in bands, you said cover bands. Were you in original bands as well? Were you writing and part of the music writing process during that time?
I would say out of the bands I've been in, probably 80% covers bands, maybe 20% original bands.
Hmm.
The very first band I was in was a grunge band called Blood Wedding. The most fun band I've ever been in. Three of us, and the
Nice.
guys were just nuts. They
Three-piece
were,
grunge band. Hello. Yeah.
yeah, they were massively into Nirvana, massively. Me not so much. I kind of came in, replaced the drummer they had, but we had a hell of a lot of fun. And the stuff. I've still got some tapes now, like the demo tapes we made,
Oh
and
yeah.
it just sounds like Nirvana. But it was really fun, original stuff. Where my first opportunity, other than doing my GCSE music, where I had to come up with some compositions for that. Um, Other than that, I hadn't really had a chance to be too creative. It was just playing
Mm,
along to other stuff.
yeah.
And then after that, I joined a band called, well, I've actually formed a band, and this is one with the guy that I was at college with called Twisted, and that
Yep.
was like a Brit a Brit rock sort of band. So we did a few covers.
Yep.
We did some actually did an Oasis one. We did what else did we do? Radiohead, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was, yeah, that was totally different. I can't even really describe the type of music it was, to be honest, but
Yeah.
a lot more
Okay.
serious. The other band was a laugh. This was a lot more serious.
Okay.
But yeah, it was. I didn't have quite so much creative input in that. Just really coming up with the drum parts.
Yeah.
And then fast forwarding a lot further forward, I was in another band where there was a lot of songs already written when I joined. But when I joined, I started to have quite a big creative input in the songs, even the
Mm,
musical side of it,
yeah.
which kind of made me realise, oh, actually, I can come up with these things, even though I'm just playing sat here hitting the skins. So I
It,
kind of yeah,
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that because a lot of people look, yeah, drummers have been the butt of jokes and band jokes and music jokes for decades and generations. But yeah, the rhythm, people just think, oh, all drummers do is hit stuff in time, and it's just all about rhythm. But so much of music is about rhythm, and even when you get into melodies, some of the best melodies are more about the rhythm than they are about the melody. Like I always say that there's 12 notes in any scale, in any Western scale, but there's a lot more than 12 ways that you can position them and hit them and what order you hit them and how fast you hit them. So as a drummer, you've actually got a whole lot more tools. Like keyboard players may go, oh, look, we can do all these fancy, harmonics and harmonies and melodies. And then a drummer can go, yeah, can you do, what are they, the paradiddle? Like this? And
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
yeah, there's so much to it, and people disregard it. So that is very cool. So what are you using there? So you mentioned GarageBand. So is that what got you into creating your own? Is that what you created, kind of your first song? And do you want to talk us through that? Because I know that this is the Creator Town Hall, so there's people out there, many that are already creating, many that are very experienced creators, but we always have a lot of folks tuning in that are like on the fence, that are at the start of their journey. So why don't you sort of take us back to that point where you started learning GarageBand and creating, and what was that sort of your entry to creating like a whole end-to-end song that you put out there into the world?
Yeah, and actually, funny enough, the first few things I created, I've still never put out. I think
Ah.
Arrival, which was the first song I sent into YML, and that's the kind of title track of my first EP that I released. That's the first thing I actually released out. I've got a few things I was listening to the other day. Funny enough, I was trying to
Nice.
go through my iPad and clean some stuff out. The very first track I wrote, it was only about 2 minutes long, and I called it "Where Do I Go" or something. It was awful, absolutely awful. But it was just my introduction into. Maybe I'll release this stuff one day just for a laugh.
There you go.
But
The B sides. Yeah, love it.
yeah, it was my introduction, and at that point, I just technically, other than learning the basics through watching your channel, I had no idea what I was doing on GarageBand, even down to things like quantization and stuff like that. So that as a drummer, it's frustrating because the timings weren't quite right and things like that. And
Mm,
then I did a track that got slightly better. I think I called it "Flight of Carpenter," and it was a mixture of the Flight of the Navigator soundtrack and John Carpenter inspired. And again, I listened to that the other day. That isn't actually too bad. There's no vocals. It's just a sort of 4 minute long instrumental piece. But I can see now listening back to it that I was sort of progressively getting slightly more competent on GarageBand. To start with, it
yeah,
was just on my phone. By the way, that I was just I had an iPhone 8 I think at the time, and I was just using
yeah,
that. And then it wasn't until I think around just before I started actually releasing stuff that I got the iPad. I got an iPad 2020 iPad Pro,
nice.
and that's what I used for that. And then the stuff I got behind me, I kind of gradually got over time the
Yeah,
mic and the keyboard and things like that. Up until that point, trying to like press the keys on the phone screen with my big fat sausage fingers, and all the frustrations that go with that. And
Oh, that's
actually,
cool.
yeah, and actually the album that I'm putting out now, this album of covers. I mean, some of these songs that were on that I did almost a year ago, and now before putting them out, I've gone back and I've like, oh my god, what the hell was I doing there on GarageBand? So I've realised over that year just how much more I've learned
That's
on
amazing.
using GarageBand. But I mean, I knew GarageBand existed years ago, and it used to come. I don't know if it still does. It used to come automatically on your phone when you got it,
Mm. Yep.
and I was like, "What the hell's that?" And I'd always just delete it. And I actually had a go on it once, and I just had no clue. So I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, I managed to do a beat or something," and I'll get rid of that.
Yeah.
And genuinely, it wasn't until I stumbled across your channel, I was like, "Bloody hell, you can do that on this free bit of software on the phone,"
Yeah.
and went from there.
It's yeah, it's phenomenal, and it was amazing for me because I went through the exact same. It's weird. We have a lot of things in common, and again, it's playing in the three-piece grunge band. I definitely did that back in the day, and then getting GarageBand and going, oh, I don't know what to do with this. And I always say that the thing Apple does to hide this from people is make it really hard to add more than 8 bars. So when you first start using GarageBand, you don't see that little plus in the corner, and you
Mm,
think I thought it was just for making 8 bar loops. For the longest time, I would open
yeah.
it whenever I got a new phone or a new iPad, and then just go, yeah, this is pretty cool, but it's just a toy. And then it wasn't until I sort of went, hang on, maybe I can actually, oh, look, I can add more than 8 bars. And it opens up this whole world. So it's good to hear because, again, and it's great to hear that you started on the phone too, because I was having this conversation with Patrick of the GarageBand Guide in GarageBand Weekly this week to say that, and we were talking about our sausage fingers too, and the fact that on the phone it can be pretty challenging to do that. But I said,
Yeah.
look, iPhone 7s and iPhone 8s and these things are so cheap now that the barrier to entry is virtually nil. So if you want to go out there and start with GarageBand, just basically get yourself an iPhone 7 or iPhone 8. It still runs the latest version of iOS and GarageBand, and you can actually start with it and have a functional phone. Like, you really don't need any additional gear. And then if you love it, like you did, like many of us do, you get yourself an iPad and you're off to the races. So, very,
Yeah.
very cool stuff. Speaking of your, I'm going to try and share this. I did this just before the show, and this is when I turned into a Dalek. So we'll see if this works, but we'll bring up the screen here. So you've got an album launch coming up in now 9:30 a.m. my time, which is in almost 12 hours. So here's what you do. You set yourself an alarm for about 12 hours time. You grab yourself a coffee or a beer or a scotch, and then you settle in and you catch this album launch. Do you want to give us are there any secret? Because this is all very mysterious. You've said it's covers here. What if I put the show more? Does it tell me all the songs? Or is
It
it,
does.
oh, it does. Or do we reveal no, I'm not going to reveal the songs here. I'm going to make, you can give us some highlights, but I'm not going to reveal all the songs here because I want people to go over to the link. I've put it here in the chat, and it's there on Night Train 98. There's his YouTube channel. You can go there. It's the top one on the top left there, and that is linked straight under this video. So whether you're watching live or on the replay, that is my command. I'm not that bossy very often, and I'm no good at promoting my own stuff. But when someone's good enough to come on the show and have a chat with me, and happens to have an album launch in the next 12 hours, I think it's something that folks should go and do. So I think I saw Ultravox there. That was the one thing I saw in there. So are we expecting some, if I think of you and your music, I'm thinking like 80s synthwave kind of stuff here and versions of that, or is it going to run the gamut? Am I going to be super surprised by the tracks on this album?
Um, I mean, I think I've probably released most of these tracks at some point over the last 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
But I don't know if people would have necessarily seen those. I have gone back in and I've kind of remixed them. Like I was saying, I'm a
Mm.
little bit more competent on GarageBand now, so I've gone in, I've remixed them. I think the vocals were kind of okay, but I might have re-recorded a couple of bits of the vocals. But as far as the actual content of the album, there are probably no major surprises. There's a fair bit from the 80s in there. It's basically, so it's called Moments in Time, and it's songs from the 80s up, more older stuff than there is newer stuff.
Yeah.
But just songs I really like and mean something to me. The album's got 8 tracks on it. It's only just over half an hour long. I think it's only just long enough to actually qualify to be an album and not an EP. But I was going to put an extra song on it, and my wife Tara, like, she sung on the Kate Bush cover on there. She was going to
Oh,
sing
I'm
another
looking at
one,
that now. Yep.
but for various reasons, she decided she didn't want to do it. So it's a song slightly less than there was going to be.
Yeah.
But on the launch, I think I was explaining to you before, wasn't I? I've sung pre-recorded live vocals over it, so that was sort of came with its own set of challenges because I'm very sort of not saying I'm perfect, but I'm a perfectionist when it comes to production.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
to listen to it back and the vocals obviously aren't perfect, it's quite hard for me to listen to. It's like, oh God, like that's a bit flat, that's a bit pitchy. But I wanted
Yeah.
to kind of put the live thing out, do something a little bit different, to show people kind of who I am. But on that launch, there's a couple of what are called bonus tracks, which I
Ooh.
haven't listed on there. So they are well, I say they're a mystery. One of them I've had a copyright claim, and they've actually written down what it is on the description, which kind of takes a bit of the mystery away.
Now, I'm
Uh,
looking at that now, going, "Oh, there you go." Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
so is that the only one you've had a copyright claim on? That's
um,
pretty astounding.
the reason will be for that one is because that I purely did for that live pre-recorded live version, and
Gotcha.
it's actually using their own backing
Ah,
track.
okay.
So the band that I've covered, they always, because they're a synthwave band and they quite commonly do this, they release all their songs as instrumentally.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's basically karaoke, that one. I just
Gotcha.
wanted to add it. So the other 9 songs on there are my own
Own arrangements.
making
Yeah.
and production. But I do, every time I put a cover up, I seem to get a copyright claim on it. Uh, but
It's yeah, yeah. Look, for those that don't know about this, I'll do the 30-second version, which is that YouTube has a library, a catalog of music, and pretty much every song that you can think of that's been released by a major artist through a label has a little like digital footprint. And if that melody, if that sound, it doesn't even have to be the original recording, is heard, it tags that and says, "Hey, are you covering this song? We think you are, and we flagged it as a cover." If you use the original track or any part of the original music, which is what I was saying, it will tag it, but it will also make that a copyright claim, meaning that if you monetize that video, with a cover, you get to basically split it 50-50 with the original artist. If you're using their original audio, then you can't monetize any of that. So when I do YML every week, which you mentioned before, Your Music Live, I play other people's music. If those people have released music, I just get an email straight after YML. It's just like boom, 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 boom. It's just claim after claim, which is totally fine because that's their music and I'm playing it. So yeah, that comes through as a copyright claim. So if you weren't familiar with that, it's not a bad thing. It's not a copyright strike. So that's the thing to keep in mind. So Al's not going to get in trouble. The YouTube bosses aren't going to come and smack him. He's all going to be fine. But it just means it all comes down to the ads. Because again, at the end of the day, hello YouTube, by the way, we're live on YouTube. But yes, you are all about advertising because, as we always say, when a product is free, and it's amazing that we can do this free on this platform, this interview live, and that you can release your album and launch it as a premiere live on the platform, but we pay for it through the ads that you're probably watching right now. How funny will it be if I come back and put an ad right there? I have to remember to do that now. So I usually don't put mid-roll ads, but I'm so tempted to put a mid-roll ad right there just for fun. All right, we're going to talk more about your music here because you. Oh, by the way, the Mad World, the Tears for Fears / Gary Jules song that you got there, that is one of my absolute favourites, and I've heard that version. You have released that one before. I'm not making this up. That's one that I
yeah,
have actually heard. Yeah,
yeah,
that is a very very cool version. I'm like, oh shoot, was it actually Al's version?
yeah,
I know a lot of people
yeah,
cover
yeah,
that tune, but it was yours
yeah,
that
yeah.
I
And
that I enjoyed.
I did actually mention you. I do actually mention you on there and say I know this is one of your favourites, Pete. So hopefully I'll do this justice.
It is. It's a great tune, and yeah, like the original is so good, and then the stripped down acoustic version that Gary Jules does is just so like heart wrenching. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's go back. So you've had a full album premiere before, and I was gonna cross over here and show this, but it's a black screen because the premiere starts with a black screen. But it is if we come over here, it is now I can't see it. Is it one of these? Hang on. No,
No.
no, no. No, it's not on your. If we go to your videos tab, there we go. Oh, so you've got too much here now. We're not going to fight it, but it is linked down below. I promise you, so you can go and check out the full album, which was called From Boy. So you got Moments in Time and From Boy to Man. It's like, oh, I love it. So tell us about this album and what this was all about and how you created this and what sort of message you were sending with that last album.
Okay, from Boy to Man. It was an idea before I even wrote a single track. that I wanted to come up with a sort of a concept album, really, just talking, just a bit of therapy. I think it was when I first
Mm,
thought the idea up. It was um, writing an album which covers my life right back from my kind of earliest memories right up to not present day, but up to meeting my wife and having my kids.
mm.
And that was kind of the concept I thought of. I went and did quite a lot of planning on this one, actually, in my notes on my phone. Nothing really posh, but and I actually went in and I came up with, right, song one's going to be about my kind of early years and my happy memories, playing my NES and getting my first keyboard and stuff like that. And then there's the sort of darker second track, which is about issues my parents were having, and I was kind of witnessing that. So that's about that. And then the one that you're playing there is Seaside, which is kind of about my time going on holiday by the sea.
Mm.
It covers my relationship with my brother and him moving away when he met his wife, and going to college and get my first job,
Yeah,
and
but
then marriage and things like that. So it
I like
it
that. I like this
covers.
shot. I like that. I like the studying. Yeah, it's very
Luckily,
cool.
I discovered LumaFusion before I put that out, so it was a bit better than what I was putting out on iMovie at the time.
Oh, it's very cool, and I think again it speaks to, if I may say so, not to be too cliche, but it does speak to your prog rock roots, that it's like a concept. I'm thinking like the Rush was at the 20, what year was it, 22 2000,
21,
the
2112.
3112. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm not a Rush fan, as you can probably tell, but yeah, a lot of those albums back in the day were just like, oh no, it's got to be in order, and it's got to be like it's telling you the whole story, and yeah, it's very cool. Do you think this is a bit of a sort of a sideways thing? You're doing this album of covers. You did the album previously. Obviously, you do a lot of singles and things as well. Do you think that there's a place for albums still in 2022, Al?
Yeah, I think so. I know it's discussed quite a lot on your show, isn't it? Really
Yeah.
about, our album's dead and our singles the way to go. Um, I yeah, I still love albums. I would turn the tripod to you, but I've got loads of CDs over there on a rack. To be honest with you, I don't listen to them that often actually on the CD.
Yeah.
I think the return of vinyl has sort of helped to a degree
Mm.
save the album, hasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
People don't, obviously people. I've got Spotify, and that's how I 99% of the time listen to my music. But the midnight albums that I buy now when they come out, I always buy them on vinyl
Mm.
because it's just nice to do that sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope to that the albums continue, and it doesn't just go down the single route going forward. Because like I say, we're doing this album. Um, I always say to people, if you've got a spare hour and 20 minutes, which is obviously quite a lot of your life,
Yeah.
listen to From Boy to Man right from the start to the end, because that's kind of how it was meant to be listened to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one. So if you're watching live or if you're on the replay, I'll invite you, because we're right at the halfway point here. So we'll take a quick break and get sort of interactive here. But if you first of all, if you want to check out the music, Jade Star has put a link to the Song Whip link. If you're not aware of Song Whip and you are a independent creator, it is a great way to share your music. All you need to do is grab a link, so a Spotify and Apple Music or YouTube, wherever, link to your music. You plug it into songwhip.com and it creates this. So what you can do here is have access to everywhere, and see, I'm a YouTube Music user, so I'll come in here and I'll click on YouTube Music, and it opens up the album directly into YouTube Music. So it's a great way to share your music with people regardless of what platform they're using. If you're just sharing your Spotify link, hey, guess what? I don't use Spotify. Spotify's big in Europe, but it's not that big in Australia. Or, well, it's big in Australia, but it's bigger in the US and Europe. Apple Music is big in some parts of the world. YouTube Music's big in others. So utilize that. But let us know also. I'm intrigued about the whole album thing. So just give us one comment. Just go albums with a thumbs up or a yes, or albums with a thumbs down or no. Do you still listen to albums? Because you talked about Nirvana before. When I'm in a particular mood, I'll just put Nevermind on and listen end to end, or Bleach if I'm in a particularly down mood, or Radiohead's OK Computer just gets played to death, and Tool's Anima album is like, there are albums that just only belong end to end. But then again, I'm an old man, and when I come in from yelling at clouds, I need to listen to an album. And yeah, it just doesn't do the same thing for me to put on a playlist or put on a single. So yeah, well, I'm intrigued as to what others feel about that as well. So let's talk gear. Let's nerd out and geek out a little bit. As we were setting up here today, I was saying you were like, "Oh, I'm not really a tech guy." And I'm like, "Don't worry, I'm not really a tech guy either." Like, I look at the technology as the means to get the music out there. Like, yes, I am a bit of a nerd in that I do like my computer and my iPad and my gear. I like things that are shiny and have buttons and do things. But I would rather them not have all of the hassles and the problems that they have, just quietly. But what is it that inspires you, and what sort of gear do you use, and how important is it in your production, or that you found it to be?
That's a good question, actually, because I listened back to the first things I put out, the first EP Arrival, and yeah, my I think my sound has kind of evolved a bit since then.
Mm,
When I put Arrival out, listen to the drums are very electronic sounding.
yeah,
I think I kind of settled since then on I've been using the like live drum sounds a lot more. But I don't really think in general the production, other than the fact that my knowledge has come on a little bit since then. I don't think the production has really changed that much. I think
mm,
the very first songs I put out, and actually Despair, which is the last track on that EP, that was
mm,
recorded using these headphones just through this microphone here.
yeah,
And you wouldn't really necessarily notice any difference to it being recorded through this thing behind me. So
mm,
I think equipment it makes a bit of a difference. I think you always say, don't you, that you don't notice it too much. The slight differences, if you know what I mean.
yeah,
It comes down to the song itself and the performance rather than
yeah.
the gear to a degree. If you've got a really good ear, then you're going to notice the
Mm,
difference between it being recorded on a microphone like this or a microphone like that, if that
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I think people overdo the gear, and I know that I've had this opinion, and when I talk to people like Jade Starr and like Mike from Creative Source, like we've all got the same opinions, yet there seems to be this misconception and this other voice that's out there saying that no, you need the gear. And I often think that like most things in life, people that have invested a lot of money and a lot of time into the high end gear, of course, they want to tell you to use the high end gear because they don't want to have that buyer's remorse and that feeling of dissonance that they're like, oh, whoops, hang on, maybe I didn't need to spend 20 grand on this Pro Tools HD rig when Night Train's putting out music with $1,000 iPad and one microphone and a keyboard and some speakers. Like and again, some of the best songs that I've heard. And for those of you that tune into Your Music Live, the amount of people that are like, this is on my iPhone, like Gary Hubbs, like many people in the community know Gary Hubbs is like, yep, iPhone 6S, old school analog iRig, but because he knows how to sculpt the tone and he knows what sounds good, he creates amazing music with that. Now, would Gary Hubbs tunes in $1 million studio sound slightly better? Probably, but you still need a good song. And again, I've always said like a great song on earbuds is better than a crap song in $1 million studio every day and twice on Sunday. So we'll talk about albums and then we'll come back to your specific gear that you got behind you there because everyone loves to know what you're actually using them, but because they're going to tune in, because I've told them to, I've threatened them to not tune into the premiere because everyone's going to be there. They're going to want to know what you've been using to record with. So Derek Smith says thumbs up to albums. Yes, Gregor O'Sullivan's albums. Yeah. So all the older folks. No, I mean, sorry, no, all the experienced folks like me and Al are liking the albums. No, it's not true. Sorry, we're not ageist. We are completely inclusive here. Martin Hammer's here. Hello. See, the reason I love this time slot is a lot of our European friends can actually tune in live. So g'day to you, Martin. Yes to albums, says Electric Owl Works, who did confirm that South Wales is in New York. So it is just below the Canadian border and is, I guess, near Niagara Falls sort of area there. So there you go. I learned something new tonight. It's not New South Wales here in Australia. It's not South Wales in the south of Wales. It is actually in New York. So there you go. Uh, I've lost my train of thought. What were we talking about there? We were talking about something really. Oh, yes, the gear. So behind you there, it looks like an M Audio key station that you're rocking. Is that the Audio Technica AT2020? So take us through the gear that you're currently using and why you chose that particular gear.
Okay, so yeah, Audio Technica AT2020. That was because you recommended it, basically. I was using, I'll grab it out of the drawer. Anyone who's seen my kind of earlier videos I put out, I was using this. This is
Oh, yeah.
an EV. It's actually my wife's mic.
Nice.
It's a female vocal mic. That's what
Oh
she's written on
wow.
there. Female vocal. It's a N stroke D 367 female vocal mic.
Nice.
Yeah, dynamic mic. I was using this first,
Yep.
and I wanted the condenser mic basically.
Yep.
So I went for this one. So I still use this one, and actually I use this on the live pre-recorded live performances I'm putting out on the launch.
Yep.
It's certainly
Yeah.
better for that. So I tried recording those on this one, and it just didn't sound right. So there's obviously
Yeah.
a place for all of it. I've got down here an old, I didn't quite see it, but an old HP laptop that I really just use that for uploading stuff to Slaps and DistroKid because I can't do that on my phone,
Yeah.
and just having lyrics up on this screen
Yeah.
here when I'm singing, basically.
Nice. Nice.
I've got the DT 770 Pro headphones, the 80 ohm ones I went with, so sort of middle ground.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah, they're really good, comfortable, clear, really sort of good balance
Yep.
of everything. I've got the Steinberg UR22 Mark II down here. I don't know. I'll try and move out of the way, but here,
Yep. There it is.
which is obviously the audio interface I use, and a kind of cheap USB hub here.
Mhm.
This is I went for the biggie on this one. This is
Oh,
the 61.
the
So
61 with the
yeah,
semi-weighted keys. Love it. Yeah.
yeah, and really really happy with this. I don't actually use it that often. When I've put out I think one actually sort of live performance of me kind of singing whilst playing piano, and I use it for that. But generally, I probably just use the keys on the iPad screen rather than
Yeah.
rather than that. I think that's pretty
Yep.
much it. Apart from the
Nice.
yeah,
And the
I've got
iPad.
and the speakers, the Eris 3.5s, which again were.
Yep.
I think I spoke to you about those before I got them, didn't I? I said,
I
"What do
think
you
so. I
reckon?"
think I talked to a lot of people about those because they're the gateway monitor speakers, and when I say gateway, I've gone back to them. So I used to have KRK Rockets, and I bought these Presonus Eris 3.5s, which are again just ridiculously good value, $100 a pair, or about 100 quid, I think for you. I think about 150 Australian, and they just sound so good for the cost and for the size of the speakers. I mean, they're reference monitors, so you're not going to blast anything, but hey, we're usually, most of us are in bedroom studios here. We're not exactly needing big 8-inch speakers, but yeah, they just are amazing. So how long have you had those, and have you found those good for mixing getting your mixers sounding balanced?
Yeah, it's insane. Obviously, a lot of people say don't mix in headphones. I
Mm.
do to a point,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's insane. It's insane how much if you get that mix sounds all right. You take it off and you play it through the speakers, and the vocals are being twice as loud as they were before.
Yep. Yep.
It's quite crazy. So I try to use a bit of a balance of the two, and I
Yep.
think someone else has discussed this on your channel in the past. But then I'll play it on other through the AirPods, sorry, or down on
Yep.
a Bluetooth speaker, and most importantly, out in the car on the sound system in the
The old
car.
car
Just
test. Yep.
yeah, that's it. So I'll do that when I've sort of got what I think is a final mix, and then it's just
Mm.
a case of trying to find a balance between them all because it's obviously going to sound
Yeah.
different depending on what you listen to it on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so other than the iPad, I think that's pretty much everything that I use, and obviously that's the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
very cool. And I think Gregory's got it right here. You just need to spend enough on gear to avoid headaches. Spending more doesn't make much difference. And I agree with that. Like looking around at the gear you got there, I mean, you've got the M Audio keyboard that's like a couple of $100. You've got a couple of $100 or $150 interface there. Like that seems to be the sweet spot for a lot of gear in the home recording world. If you can spend $30 or $50 on some of this stuff, and you will probably get headaches. But if you spend $500, you're not gonna hear the benefit. I always compare it to wine, and I don't know if people are wine
Yeah.
drinkers out there, but it's
Yep.
the same thing. Like a $5 bottle of Plonk, yeah, you're probably gonna feel pretty rough after that. A $20 bottle, you're gonna be like, this is quite good. It tastes it's not bad. So you go to $100 bottle, the difference between that $20 and $100 bottle is, for me, zero, because I'm not a wine connoisseur, but you have to be really, really knowledgeable and have a really keen sense of taste, and in the case of music, a really keen ear. And if you do and you want it, I don't ever say to anyone, don't spend money on gear. If it makes you happy and you're getting good sounds and you can afford to do it, knock yourself out. And if you're going to do that, use the affiliate links down at studiolivetoday.com/gear. Support the channel. um, we'll move on. Friggsy's just dropped by the way. Speaking of, I was just talking about monitors. I think Friggsy does have a big space that he records in, and he's just bought himself some 8-inch monitors. So not everyone needs 8-inch monitors. Friggsy does. And Friggsy will actually be on the Creator Town Hall in just a few weeks' time as well. So there you go. Some exciting news to throw out there on the show here. All right. So once again, if you're just joining us, I don't know where you've been. We've been going 40 minutes here, but check out the links down below. There is a link there to the YouTube channel, which you need to go and follow and subscribe. There is the link to tomorrow's. Well, not tomorrow. Today, your time. Tomorrow for me in the morning. I'll be getting up for that one. But in about 12 hours' time, Al's premiere video. So join him and me and a whole bunch of cool people for that premiere. And of course, the Song Whip link as well, if you want to check out Al's music. We're getting sort of towards the end of this. And one thing that I like to ask folks about their music creation is, what is the proudest moment that you would say that you've had? You've had a lot of years, decades, might say, of music creation and of playing in bands and of having experiences. Is there any one, or you can cheat like most people do and grab a couple that stand out to you over that time?
Most recently, I have to say the release of From Boy to Man, just because I'm quite proud of that album. I think anyone who kind of creates something is gonna kind of look back and see, oh, I could have done that better, or I could have done that better. But I don't spend a lot of time listening to my stuff, but I think you did a video about it once. It is important to kind of listen to your own music, and actually leading on from that, I try to write and record and release music that I like. If you know, what I mean, I do it for me mainly. So I want to listen back sometimes to my stuff, and. But I'm quite proud of that album. I would say, and it did a lot of good for me. Like say for therapy purposes. It was a therapeutic process writing and recording an album. Even down to the I mean, if you've heard the album, the penultimate track is a poem that my mum wrote for me 20 years ago when I had when my son was born, and I got her to read it. Record her reading it and put some kind of music behind it, and that was quite special doing that. There are lots of aspects that kind of went into this album that really meant something, and it's all sort of been therapy, and it's actually started kind of my family talking about things we hadn't talked about for years, the certain subjects that raised in the album. Other than that, if I'm going to cheat and say a second one. I probably the sort of biggest live show that I played. It was I don't even know how many years ago it was, but just getting up on a big stage with a big sound system in front of a sort of decent audience. It's only ever happened once. Other than that, it's been a pub with 6 people tapping their pints, But,
play song 2. Ding 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 ding.
But that was quite cool. I've still got that on video as well. Not very good sound quality, but it's like we promoted it well and actually had like a decent audience there. So probably that as far as my drumming career goes.
Yeah, very cool indeed. We got, because you played in cover bands for so long, you played a whole bunch of variety of music. I want to hear, because people are playing cover bands, I want to hear the song that you loved playing the most and the song that you absolutely dreaded having to play when you were in a cover band. Are there any that spring to mind that you're like, yes, I'm glad we get to play this one, and oh my God, I can't believe that they want us to play this?
Oh, blimey. The last band that I was in, the one where the singers kind of moved away, there was a couple of songs that every single time we had to play them, it was like, and actually the singer would make the joke even when we were doing the gigs, sort of saying, oh, yeah, I was really looking forward to playing this one. I think was it Nothing But a Good Time by...
Nothing but a good... Is that Poison? Nothing but a
I think
good time?
it might be.
We have to look it up. It was one of those hair metal bands, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know what it was. It's just something I really did not like.
It was Poison, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the drums in that are just pretty much like your standard boom, 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 like for most of it. So it's probably, that's interesting. Nothing but a good time.
Yeah.
A bit of Poison.
I think as far as songs I've enjoyed playing the most, bizarrely, when I was in the 60s band, it was it wasn't kind of your old standard 60s stuff. It was the more interesting stuff. So
Oh,
we played the Cream. I think it's the Cream song, White Room.
okay.
Pretty sure it's Cream.
It's a
That was a
deep
really.
cut.
I,
Yeah.
I would never listen to that, but that
Mm,
was a really fun song to play. And I think
yeah.
more recently, probably "Wasted Years" by Iron Maiden uh, was a really fun song to play. "Run to the Hills" not so much because I struggled to keep up with it.
I think that was on
that was a challenge.
one of the Rock Band or Guitar Hero games. I'm sure it was Run to the Hills. That was
It
one of the
was.
songs that
It
I could
was. Yeah.
not get past. 'Cause I used to be a big Rock Band and Guitar Hero player, and I would play it on
Yeah.
hard mode and then expert mode. And I'm pretty sure that was one that I could not play the drums to on
Yeah.
expert mode to save
Yeah,
myself. So
it
yeah,
was on Rock Band, yeah, because
it was.
I remember
Oh.
even I struggled to keep up with it as a drummer
I know that
on
was on like
expert mode.
four pads and a kick, and I'm just like, I cannot do this. I'm like,
Yeah,
what the heck? Oh, that's very cool. All right, so if anyone has any questions, by the way, feel free to ask those questions or comments are welcome because we do have folks here. Jade Star, Jade Star says it's Poisson. I can't even spell it. That's all right. It's close enough. It's been a long day, Jade. Jade's been up. Jade, like me, gets up early and does her work early, so she's into overtime. Hello to Stevie G, who has dropped on by. Thank you for being here. Dude, it's Jamie Mallender. Hello to you, my friend. Hope you are well. As a drummer, Al, were you ever left to do a solo while the rest of the band sloped off for a beer? What a great question, Joe. What say you, Al?
that is a very good question, Joe. Yes, I did used to do a drum solo. Yeah, I come from like the I just think of the word, but bands that I was into, Dream Theater, Rush, the drummers would play solos, especially Neil Peart from Rush. His drum solo got sort of bigger and bigger as every
Yeah,
tour went on. So it was something I really wanted to do as sort of portraying my heroes, as it were, at the gigs. So
yeah.
yeah, but there was at most gigs, the singer hated it. The rest of the guys would get off and quite happily go and, like Joe says, to go and have their beer. The singer would kind of stand there in front and
Oh,
sort of make stupid faces at me because he didn't like me doing it. And then there was a couple of gigs, but we used to play at these couple of venues in a nearby seaside town, and it had, I don't know if
yeah.
anybody else has had these traffic light things where if it gets too loud, it cuts the electricity in the pub. I don't
Oh,
know if anybody's seen those, but and we were always quite loud, so if it goes red for more than it's like 5 seconds or something, it cuts
yeah.
the electricity to the band. So all you've got then is drums. So I used to have the odd impromptu drum solo
Yeah.
whilst we waited for the electricity to come back on.
That is so cool. Oh, mate. Yeah. I have sort of, I've heard of something like that. I didn't know that it was like a traffic light system, but I've definitely heard that there are like noise restriction things where, and I've been at a gig where the band wanted to keep playing and just at a certain time it was like, no, that's our curfew. And the venue just shut it down, like turned off everything. And I think you were right. It was just, all the lights went off, all the amps
Yeah.
went off, and it was just the drummer going, like, there, I guess that's what you got left.
We found a
Um,
workaround in the end. We just got an extra extension lead and would plug it in out in the different room because it was a specific socket. Because obviously you didn't want to lose every bit of electricity to the pub,
oh,
so
yeah,
we just bypass it and plug it in somewhere else and
there
hope
you go.
that
Well,
the
yeah,
people in the pub didn't notice.
they can't have the fruit machines going off, so just go and unplug that and just shove him in there. Yeah, it's all going.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, nice one. Lily Pillies, hello to Manny from the Lily Pillies. Got a question. As a drummer, did the singer ever help you load, he's corrected that, load the gear in and out of venues? Or was I the only sucker singer that would always do that? Yeah, let's talk about this because, yeah, drummers have about 17 times as much gear as any other. I don't care, even if you're the bass player and you've got a giant freaking cabinet, you don't got a whole kit that you got to pull down and set up every time. So did you play in bands? Were your bandmates there to help you, or did they just let you suffer?
That's a very good question, Manny. I don't think I've ever been in a band where the rest of the guys helped carry the drums out. In fact,
Oh no!
I got quite quick at packing the drums down. To be perfectly
Yeah.
honest with you, as far as packing the kit down, if there's any other drummers in the chat, no drummers like the singer or the guitarist touching their stuff because there's so many
Oh,
things you can undo and do up and things like that that you know
yep.
what you want undone and what you want kept, so you can put it up the same the next
Mm.
time. But as far as once it's actually packed down and all the cases are there, and I've actually got quite a lot of drums as well. My kit's massive, but no, I would be to and fro in where the rest of the guys were off with their beers, chatting to people, having packed down their one guitar and their one amp. So that's a very good question, Manny. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it's
There
the
you
same for other drummers out there.
Well, yeah. Look, that is a really good question, and I must admit, I'm at the point now where I'm a one man show for everything that I do, and I don't play gigs per se, but you might have seen I do some of my happy hour shows on location, and I'm training my children to help me like load and get the gear set up because again, for me, it's not just a guitar and a mic. Obviously, I've got to have all the laptop and the mics and the cameras and everything set up, and yeah, I hear you because they'll put things away, and it's like, oh, hang on, why did you put that in that spot? And why did you put when you wound that cable? Why did you wind it that clockwise instead of wounding? It's like yeah, it's the littlest thing. So I can only imagine if someone was just like, actually that doesn't remove it from the stand. You've just loosened my perfectly tuned drum that I've been
Yeah,
spending hours on. So next
yeah.
time, maybe just stay away. So
Yeah, I was
I
poorly at a gig once, and I it not wasn't anybody's fault, but the rest of the guys just packed all my drums down, and it literally took
mm,
me weeks to get it back. How how I had it. So it's a bit like when someone sits in your car, isn't it? Moves your seat. It's
right.
it's
You're like,
just a
how are
nightmare.
you seeing anything with the rear vision mirror pointing that way? Like, what size? How? Oh, yeah, no, it's crazy. Jamie says drummers are my favorite people. I love drummers, but can't play them to save my life. And look, that's a good point. I'm going to pause on this one too because I. I try to drum and I try to program drums and I try to do drums. And look, I'm okay at it. When I need to do it, I'll do it. But I think that there's so much value and benefit in getting someone that has more knowledge and understanding of drums to help you. And it's okay. I think the one thing I want to say about this is that in our world of doing everything yourself and being these one man and one woman bands, it's easy to just go, oh, I can do it, so therefore I will. But sometimes you can reach out to other people and you can actually collaborate. And I think sometimes some of the best songs I've seen lately have been where people have collaborated with specialist stuff and they've brought that together and been able to create something cool. So that doesn't mean that you all should reach out to Al now and say, Al, can you do the drums for all my songs? Because he's a busy man. But I think it does work well. Have you done much in the way of collaborating with others at this stage? I think, do I recall that you've done at least a couple of collaborations? You've definitely covered some songs. I know you covered one of Jade's songs, but have you been collaborating with others when it comes to actual home recording stuff?
No, I haven't actually. No, and you're right. I did a cover of Murder in Time, but I did a cover of Jade's
That's
Song
true.
Freak, and I did a cover of Closets of Decay, my favourite of Tom's songs. As the three people that influenced me the most on here, I wanted to kind of pay homage to you all over the time. But as far as collabs go, no, I can't. I just can't do it. I've
Yeah.
tried. I keep saying to people, do you fancy a collab? And it just never happens. I have someone in the community has asked me to play some drums on a song going forward, which is cool. And someone else who's not in the chat at the moment in the community is going to play a bit of guitar on the next original album I'm working on, which is cool.
Nice.
But no, I'm always happy to collab, and anybody wants me to do some drums for them on anything, I'm happy to do it. It's yeah, it's more challenges, isn't it? And it keeps it fresh. And we by collaborating with other people, we sort of up our skills, don't we? We learn new things.
It totally, absolutely, and Jade Starr, and the reason I'm bringing this up is that Jade does play a lot of drums on a lot of my songs. She says she always helps the drummer, and then he would let me jam on his kit. So that is the cool thing. I must admit, as a non-drummer, there is nothing cooler than when you've got a cool drummer friend, and you're like, "Can I have a go?" And always, by the way,
Yeah.
always ask the drummer. Don't be a dick. Always ask the drummer if you can actually play their kit, because as a guitarist, how would you feel if a drummer just picked up your guitar and started twiddling with the tuning pegs and started to do? You'd be like, no, 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 what are you doing? But for some reason, people think that drums are just like public domain property, and anyone that wants to have a bash can just sit there and have a
Yeah,
bash. So
yeah,
please ask your drummer before you hit
yeah.
his
We
kits.
are very territorial about our kit.
Yeah.
My kit's got like a big rack that goes around it, a big Gibraltar
Oh,
rack. So
nice.
it's quite good. It's sort of I always make sure I leave a very small gap to be able to sort of squeeze in behind the kit, and it's good for keeping the people away.
I love it. Joe Glenn says horn players are the worst. Spent all the time while the rest of the guys were packing up, cleaning and polishing their instruments. They're just like, the spit valve needs special attention, and everyone else is like, thanks. Yeah. Oh, nice. I like it. So we've got lots of comments coming through here. And yes, I agree with Jade. You did a stellar job on all three covers out. And how bad do I sound? Like we're 54 minutes into a 1 hour show here, and I haven't even mentioned that Al actually covered one of my songs. Like, how nice is that? So yes, you can go over to Al while you're on Al's channel. Because again, remember I demanded it. It's not actually an option. So when you're over on Al's channel down in the link there, go through all the different videos because he's actually covered Jade Star's song. I think Freak, was that the one you did of Jade's?
Yeah.
And as well as Murdering Time and the Thomas Christ song you mentioned before, which I've now forgotten. But yeah, you can check out all of those videos over on Al's channel as well. Joe says Barry and I have made our first attempt with drums. Probably really lame, but got to try. I know, Joe, shout out to you. I saw her in like a video I did 3 years ago, putting a comment there today. She's just like, I know this is old, Pete, but I'm watching this now. I'm like, that's cool. I like it. Darren Anderson said, to be fair, I don't think a drummer could play guitar. Just kidding. Drums are the hardest. I've seen you play drums. You hit a mean skin at Darren Anderson, so I know you don't really mean that. All right, we are right at the end here, and the final question. That was a penultimate question about the prouder stuff, and that was like 10 minutes ago. This is what happens with this show. It just flies by, and we go off on tangents. But that's what's so fun about it. The last question I have is. We talked about the fact this is a creator town hall and we have people of different experience levels. Some are crushing it and have put out, tens and hundreds of songs. Some are in the middle there and some are just starting out. If someone was just starting out and they're where you were a couple of years back and they were saying to you, what advice do you have that you would pass on to me? What would that be?
I think the most important thing would be where I was like right back at the start of the show, and I said when I was looking to start out, I went on YouTube and I found this Australian guy called Pete who's got these instructional videos on how to use GarageBand. No, I mean obviously GarageBand isn't the only kind of tool out there to create music, is it? But I think it's obviously wanting to do it and having the right reason to do it is the main thing.
Mm,
Making time for yourself to do these things. I tend to do most of my music while my wife's at work, so I'm not kind of compromising my family time and my own time. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Plus, it's easier. I'm sure you agree. It's easier to be wailing into a microphone when you're in the house on your own. It's a bit like it's a bit
totally,
like dance like you're on your own, isn't it? It's like sing like you're on your own.
totally.
And when I was recording this the live thing for this album, I was like trying to find a time when it was just me in the house and I could actually not worry about everybody else hearing me or annoying everybody. But anyway, I digress.
Yep.
Yeah, so GarageBand is a brilliant tool. I mean, most people have got well, not most people, but a lot of people got iPhones. I'm sure there are other similar things that you can use if you use like an Android phone. I'm not too good on other doors, but just a case of going on and playing around with it. You can't do any damage, so just go on, get familiar with GarageBand, and just start doing it. Like I said to you earlier in the show, that my first couple of efforts were horrendous,
Mm,
but you just do it, and then you just learn from there. And there's so much content on YouTube, isn't there? For it's how to's for
oh
absolutely
yeah.
everything, isn't there? But yeah, I mean, you're I'm gonna plug your $10 course thing now, but which I haven't actually bought, but I went back and I've watched so many of your videos. I think I've
You would
probably
have seen them all
seen them
anyway,
all.
mate.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if people go back and watch your back catalogue, if you're a complete novice to GarageBand, there's enough videos on there to get to the point where you can just then go on by yourself and just learn as you go.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think you said a couple of good points. I always like to sort of summarize that. I think one thing you said there about knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it. So that's a really key thing because I think a lot of people get so far in that they forget why they're doing it and defining what you actually want out of it as well. So I know that it's easy when you get into this and you start sharing things on YouTube and then you start worrying about things like views and subscribers. And it's like, does anyone actually get into music to get views and subscribers? No, you got into music to share your music and have people listen to your music. So if that's the goal and you're making your own music and people are listening to it, again, at the end of the day, I don't care if one person or 10 persons or 100 people are listening to your music. If you're getting it out there and it's having an impact on someone, then you're doing the right thing. And like you say, in terms of the practical side of it, if you want to learn it, it's out there. And testament to that is that I've started this journey of learning Logic Pro, which is the first time I've learnt like a new DAW in over a year. And it's been amazing because there's so many resources out there. And the cool people in this community have just come out of the woodwork and said, Pete, I use Logic. Here's a bunch of resources that I use, and here's some cool keyboard shortcuts, and here's some things you can do. So I think if you hang out amongst the people here, you watch the live shows, you listen to the likes of Jade Starr and Thomas Christ and Ron Ward and all these people, you'll not only hear a lot of good music, but you make connections and you make friends within these communities and contacts that are going to be the go-to resources that you need when you hit those walls. And you will hit those walls. And I think the other really cool thing you've said here tonight, or today, or this morning, wherever you are in the world, is that, yeah, music can sometimes be like therapy. And music will help you. And I always say it like this, that when you're feeling down here, music will bring you somewhere back to normal. It'll pull you out of that despair level. When you're feeling meh, it'll kind of make you feel good. And when you're feeling good already, it'll make you feel pretty ecstatic if you listen to a really good song. So it'll always notch you up a couple. It's not going to take you from here to here, but it'll always notch you up a couple of levels, and it helps you process a lot of things, which, as you mentioned in your album before. I'm really looking forward to checking out your premiere, which means we have to finish the show because I got to go to bed so I can get up and watch the premiere. But before we do finish up, I mean, I always say this, and it's always a bit of a weird thing because I say, Al, where can folks go to check out your music? Despite the fact we've talked about that for the last hour, but where would you like to send folks? Where's the best place for them to start?
I suppose most of the stuff is on YouTube. I've got the first EP I released, and From Boy to Man, and obviously tomorrow. Moments in Time will be dropping. So that's the sort of three things I have. Oh, plus the song Timber single, which I just happened to see there, Seeing Red. That's also up on Spotify, etc. I've got some stuff on Slaps. I haven't used Slaps for a while actually, but some of the songs are on there. But YouTube's probably got most of my stuff on. The only reason there wouldn't be anything on there is because I haven't kind of got around to making a video for it. But there's the premiere for From Boy to Man is on there still, so that's worth checking out.
And do go back and watch that, because again, I think when it first came out, you messaged me like, Pete, have you listened to it yet? And I'm like, mate, I did listen to it, but it was in the background, so I probably didn't get the full effect. So I listened to it again through, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's actually a whole concept now. I get it now. So yeah, I was just listening to it, going, cool synth sounds, yeah, really nice. And then I actually put it on where I could watch it and actually hear it and engage with it. I'm like, oh, okay, now I see it's actually got messages in there. So yeah, it's definitely worth not only one but a couple of spins over there. So thank you, Al. Thank you, everyone, for being here on the show. We do appreciate you, and we've got a lot of stuff coming up over the weekend. So we've got Your Music Live, of course, happening on Friday afternoon for many folks, Friday evening for those like Al in the UK and Europe, and Saturday morning here in Australia. They got the Happy Hour and GarageBand Weekly, as we do every weekend, and then Creator Town Hall this time next week. Al, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate, getting to know you and having a chat. And I know the folks here live and on the replay will really enjoy what you've had to say. Any final parting words for this wonderful community?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks for having me on, Pete. We always talk about it in the the pre-video at the beginning. Same when I went on Jade's show. It's so strange but really cool to actually be able to speak to you face to face. And you sort of said, it's almost like you feel these people even though you've never actually spoken. It's like I've never actually spoken to Tom, but we speak quite often on email and things like that. But yeah, I've actually got my iPad down here, and I've been sort of trying to keep an eye on the chat. But I'm used to some multitasking, some bloke. But yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody that's been here live in the chat. Thanks for listening to me rambling on and spinning in my chair and probably making you dizzy for the last hour.
well, I do the same thing. I have the same sort of thing. So if you watch this back in like 10 times, you'll just see this. You'll be like, yeah, because we're both sitting here doing this. I noticed it when you were talking. I was doing it. When I was talking, you were doing it. So that could be a bit of a fun drinking game for you, just watching us spin for the hour. Thank you everyone for being here. As we say at the end of every show, it is a very important thing to please be kind to yourself this weekend. Be kind to others. And most importantly, keep creating music, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now. See ya.